Let's talk about mistakes. Mistakes can be boiled down to very simply mistakes that you can live with and mistakes that you can't. I don't want to go through this whole thing and make you think that I don't make mistakes. So I make mistakes. It's just most of the time they're insignificant. It doesn't really make a difference. But I did make one that does make a difference, and it's been stressing me out for over a week now. I've been trying to figure out what to do about it. Now, if you look at the gap I have between the deck and the tar paper, it's pretty good down there. It's good really even here. This is over an inch here. I can get my fingers all in here. This is great in here. For some reason though, right around here, it turns into essentially nothing. In fact, here, I have this piece of concrete in here just to create a gap, but in reality there is no gap here. I don't know exactly what happens. I mean, from essentially here to about here, even here is not bad. I can get my fingers in here. You see that? It's just for some reason right here, it's almost like there's something back here that's thicker than normal. I didn't notice this because I got one set of eyeballs. This is what happens when you get one set of eyeballs. I looked over here. It was beautiful. I just didn't check this corner. So I've been thinking about it for a week. I really have. I've been saying to myself, what am I going to do with this? Am I going to leave it? The answer is no, I'm not going to leave it because it's not right. It needs to be off this thing. So what I'm going to do here is I took off this hanger, unnailed it, took off this corner bracket, unnailed it. I'm going to take a reciprocating saw and cut the screws that are right in here, and I'm going to take off. I mean, this is how serious I am. I'm going to take off, I don't know, a ½ inch. Whatever I think I could pull. Doing it because I gotta be right. It's just the way it is. It's gotta be right. Suck it in. So I think we're all right. So I think this problem is solved now. This problem is definitely solved. I just gotta suck it in a little bit further and we'll be good. All right, see, mistakes. Mistakes happen. This is the way it is. It's just, is it a mistake you can live with? Or is it something you can't? I couldn't live with this one, so I went and I fixed it. Oh, I'm starting the picture frame part here. And I would say that if you've never done a picture frame before, which I haven't, kind of a good rule of thumb is that the best thing you can do is don't put a miter and a notch in the same piece. So if you notice there, I got a miter on that corner. You see it. It's opened up a little bit because it's just been sitting out here for the entire day, but it's tight. And if you see here, I ended it right here. I didn't put that notch in it, the notch around this post. Why? Because a notch around a post and a miter is very difficult to get correct. So that's that. So I'm going to take you in the garage and show you how I'm cutting these miters. I'm not using a chop saw, I'm using a hand saw. It sounds insanity, but if you do it right, and use the right tool, your cut will be straight and everything will be fine. I'm using a circular saw and a jigsaw. Jigsaw to cut the notch, circular saw to cut the miter, and I'm using a speed square to make it straight. Alright, so I'm not doing that one yet. I'm not doing that one yet. I'm going to start notching the that last one there, and we're just going to see how these boards go on. I kind of don't want to get too ahead of myself. I really want to know how these boards sit. Each board is going to be like a problem on its own. So you can see every board needs to be cut down. Now my thinking is that since the door is there and you walk out, you're going to be closest to that side. So I'm going to leave the natural edge on that side. And I'm going to cut all these. You're going to be closer to that. You're going to see it first, I would assume. So we'll cut every one of these. Now these should be all straight. I'm not worried about them being straight, but I am worried possibly that they could, you know, be anywhere from 3/16 to 1/8 or 1/4. Who knows if I'm going to cut them exact every single time. So dead on straight. Make sure you're holding this down. All right, let's talk a little bit about Fiberon and Trex and the hidden fasteners versus face face screwing. The first thing is that those universal Trex hidden fastener systems, it's a plastic piece. I would not advise getting those. Two reasons. One is the gap is too big. I believe the gap is too big on the boards, and also it's the fastener is too high up. Right now, this is Fiberon. This is Nantucket Gray. This is Fiberon, and this is the Fiberon clip system in there. It's a metal clip, and it's a lot lower profile. And another thing that's good about it is there's an angle to the screw, and when you screw in there, it actually pulls this board in. Now the Trex Universal screws straight down. Basically, it's useless. I really feel like I bought them. I started using them. I was like, this is garbage, and I packed it all back up, and I brought it back to Home Depot. This is way better. This system. The screw going in. This is the screw. Same screw with the Trex Universal versus the Fiberon. It's a crappy screw. If you got the screw gun straight on it, it's going to be okay. But if you're off a little bit, you're going to strip this, and the bit that they give you is not good. There's one in every box, but it's not good, and I would highly suggest getting yourself an impact quality bit. Now I'm going to use these up, and then I'll start using my impact one. But what happens with these bits is that the bit actually strips a little bit, and then that starts stripping the screw. The next important thing is I saw a couple of videos on how to put these things in, the boards, into this specific Fiberon system. One thing I'll say about the Universal Trex is that there's no real lip. See the edge? That little lip? When you watch these videos of people installing them, like at the trade shows and stuff, I saw some guy with a 4 foot board, and he just, he picks the board up, and just angles it in, boop, drops right in. Yeah, it's a 4-foot board. And you can look at the comments and everybody's saying, yeah, try it with a 16-foot. And they're right. You cannot do that with a 16-foot, especially one person. I'm one person. I've built this deck. And I cannot, without a doubt, I cannot put this board in like they tell you to do it. Pick it up on an angle and drop it in. And it clips. It can't be done with one person. Even if you stand in the middle, these boards are so wobbly. If you've never picked up a composite board, I mean, it's just, you would not believe how wobbly these things are. I mean, you could pick, look at, I'm going to hold this as a 16-foot board. I'm just going to pick it up. Watch that other end right there. Look at this. Look how high I am already. I mean, this is like freaking compound bow quality bends right here. If you go to Home Depot to pick these things up, you got a cart, make sure you got a second person, because what happens is with a 16-footer, you center it on the cart and all the weight bends the sides down like this. And if you just stop the cart too quickly, all the boards will slide directly off the cart. I mean, that honestly, I grabbed it and I jumped on top of them and I was like yelling to somebody that was in the aisle, help me, help me. Guy ran over and it literally took us 15 minutes to get these things resituated. So it's a major problem. The next thing that's going to be a problem with 16-footers is getting them home. Let's say you got a trailer. If you got a 10-foot trailer, I mean, these things are going to bend right off the end of that trailer. If you've got a 12-foot trailer, they're probably going to bend a little bit. Next thing they're going to do is that if you don't have that weight centered on the tongue's going to lift up on the trailer, which is going to angle it down. These things are so slippery, they will slide right off the trailer. I don't care if you got 10 straps on them. They will slide right out. This is one important thing about gaps before I get into this, is that if you're looking for tight gaps, hidden fasteners is not, it's not your, it's not going to make a tight joint. Never makes a tight joint. You will never get them tighter than, say, this right here, which is about, I don't even know. It's almost a 1/4 inch. The Trex Universal is like over a 1/4 inch. This I can live with, honestly. It lets water drain, which I like. You don't want tight, obviously, because these things, I don't know, they might actually change in the sun over time, and if they're tight, you could have a problem. Do you wish it was tighter? Sure. But at least it's uniform, which is something this system does. I think my misconception of these clips was, oh, it's a system, it's going to make it easy. No. If you think you're getting this because it's easy, don't do it. Easy is surface screwing. Without a doubt, it's easy. You get yourself some tile spacers, you put them all in here, and you surface screw it. That is simple. You could get this deck done, screwed in a day. One person could do it in a day. It is hard putting these things in. You're not using this system because it's easy. You're using it because it's clean and neat when it's done. You're putting in the extra effort. Just because it's not a system to make it easier, it's a system to hide screws. That's what it is. Let's talk about these railings here for a quick second. This is Fiberon railing systems. Look like this. They come in 6-footers. They come in 8-footers. The 8-footers come with this piece right here, and it goes like this. It's a support. The height of this block is 3 3/4 of an inch. That controls everything, meaning the 6-footer has got to be that height, because if not, it won't line up at this corner. This is a 6-footer. This is an 8-footer. Now this is 32 5/8 from the top to the bottom. 32 5/8. Now 32 5/8 plus 3 3/4. I don't know what that is. 32 and 3 is 35. 5/8 and 3/4 is 3/8. So 1 3/8. So 36 3/8. That's what. I hope that's right. I'll double check it with a calculator, but that's what it seems like to me. 36 3/8. 36 3/8 means the top of the railing is going to be right around here. So right around here it's going to be, which I say is good. That's good. Now, if you don't like it, if you don't like that, if you want the top of the railing to be right here, well, then what you need to do is you need to make your own. You need to make your own support if you have an 8-footer. Now, if you don't have 8-footers, if you want to do all 6-footers, you don't need supports, which means you can control the height. But one thing I'll say here is that in New York and probably in most other states, there's a 4-inch gap rule, meaning you can't have more than 4 inches between posts. And that's because, you know, a baby could come along here, a toddler, and stick their head through it and get it stuck. Or stick their head through it and fall off. Maybe stick their whole body through it, right? So 3 3/4 is code. And that's probably why they make that. You could bring it up a 1/4 inch if you wanted to. It doesn't really make much sense. If you don't have any codes, then yeah, you can raise this up. But smart thing is well, you know, smaller than 4 inches. Is 4 inches or below, which is that's extremely safe for kids. So honestly, if you don't have kids, what do you got? A dog? You got a cat? Cat could probably fit through 4 inches. Small dog probably couldn't. And you don't want a small dog jumping off this deck. Let's get this thing over here. My first tip. Don't open this whole thing up. That strap right there, keep that strap. Go over here, cut the plastic, get in here, cut this strap, get in here, make sure you don't scratch it. The reason I say don't cut that strap over there is because you don't want this thing to fall apart, which it will immediately. Take out the bottom rail first. There's going to be stuff in these big rails, so be careful. There'll be directions in the 8-footer. In the 6-footers, the directions on the back of the box. You can see this one here. We'll just line this up at the end just to show you. Look how short this one is. This one's short. Will essentially be, this one's actually a pretty good one. It's short, but it we can actually cut it here and not really have to cut it twice. Unless I screw up, which is completely and totally possible. This is really the key. The whole thing is that, let's say this post right here was landed like in the middle. Right? Maybe it was like this. So this is what I do when I have to even one up. If it landed like this, I would cut it here. See this? I'd cut this off. I'd go to the next eye, cut it off here. Then I'd measure it. Then I'd measure the opening. And let's say it was 3 inches. Let's say this was 3 inches smaller than this. I would look at the distance from here to the hole, and that one over there to the hole, figure out that difference, and I would even them up. I'd say, okay, I got 3 inches to work with. Maybe that side was 2, and maybe this is 2.5. Well, clearly I got to take off a little bit more of this one versus that one to make it even. And that's when I would do it. I wouldn't just try and figure out the whole number and cut it right here, you know, exactly where it's supposed to be. That's a big mistake. You cut it here, get this thing out of here, and then measure and measure. It's a lot easier to do it. Now, granted, you got to make more cuts, and you might be saying, yeah, you're making unnecessary cuts. Well, it's going to make the math a lot easier if you cut it here first. You'll be able to take the overall dimension, you'll be able to look at it. It's just more easily understood. This one is interesting because it looks like I'm just gonna cut it right there. Now, another thing that's important to know, this thing's 94. You put a 94 in between here and there and you're great. Wrong. And I'll tell you why. Because this bracket system right here, see that bracket? It has a thickness to it, right? It also has these little stoppers, which means that if you made it, oh, I'll make it a 3/16 shorter on each side to get inside the post covers. Well, guess what? It's still too long. You got to take off another 1/2 inch. You got to take off another 5/8. You got to take off another 3/4. Who knows? So you see, it's these clips that matter. So the first thing I do is I don't mess with this rail at all. If I'm going to pick up tools, I'm going to use them until I don't need them anymore. I mark 1 7/8. Try and get it into the center of the post. Then I take 1/8 bit in a drill and I match the bottom of this clip up with the line. I put it in the center the best I can. Come in here and I drill. And I drill. Now, another little key, another tip is if you don't feel comfortable drilling both holes at the same time, drill the top one, screw the clip in, and then drill the bottom. I've done this a million times now, so I'm comfortable. Now the hardware. I'll show you this little bag of hardware they give you. Might be a little bit confusing. They give you 4 extra screws that you don't need on a straight railing. I think for an angled railing, you need the longer screws, but you want these 1 1/4 right there. Just noticed something. This is not screwed in. Yep, I forgot to screw that in, which means I might have put this in the wrong height. Let's take a look. No, it was pushed down. Okay, so this is good. So here's another little tip. So you see here what I did with this thing? I cut the bottom part of that groove off, right? It's a piece this wide and there's a groove in the center. I cut the bottom half of that off so that I could drop it in on top of this clip. Now it has something to lean on, and I could still put that clip to hold this piece in. There's no way to get this thing into that clip with this post here. So what you do is you put a screw right here. Don't do it too tight. I would even suggest measuring all these, putting the marks. Now we got to figure out the dimension. This is tricky got wasps. I got a major wasp problem. Can you see that? Everything you see flying around, if you even can see flying around, is a wasp. It's just hundreds of them. They're just looking for a home right now. Looking for a winter home. They're checking out every hole, which my house has a lot of, because it's built by people from the Catskills. Now, get our tape measure. This is what I do. I take a 3/4. So, 85. I make it 84 1/4. That's because there's going to be 3/8 on either side for these clips and all this kind of garbage. So, 84 1/4. It's 85. We'll double check it, but here, I'll measure it twice. 85, maybe even a hair more. And we're going to measure this. 84 1/4. Yeah. Incredibly, I only have to cut one side. How do we cut it, right? We use a reciprocating saw. The square ones are going to be a lot easier to cut than this round. And I'll show you that one next. I would highly suggest you use a longer blade than this. Why? Because if the shorter the blade, the more of a chance you have of whacking this side of it from the blade coming in and out. And the force of this blade going like this and hitting this will crack this plastic. I've already done it once, but I don't have a bigger blade. So use a 10-inch blade. Get it like this, and I will tell you right now, this is an old blade, very old blade, and it cuts it like instantly. You only need the weight of the saw to cut it. That's it. Start slow. You always start slow. You get it in the groove, and you just concentrate on making a square cut. That was the weight of the saw doing that. And all you're doing is concentrating on keeping that thing square. Put this on the end. See that? You gotta stop that. The way to stop it is a construction adhesive. Strong stuff. So all I do is I take this and I hit the corners. See that? Oh, there's the dogs. Just clips right on. UPS guys here. Just gotta make sure the thing's lined up. Anything that squeezes out, you just wipe it off. This one over here. Sure it's lined up. Man, we got a wasp bite right here. Wow. This is what I'm dealing with. Look at this. Look at that. Look what's happening here. I'm gonna have to do something about this. Just trying to make a deck here. Just trying to build a deck. Little white vinegar and water solution. Should make them think twice about coming around here. And 100 wasps just came out of this hole over here. Right up in this corner. They gotta be hurting now. dropping like wasps. For sure, this was a serious home for them. I mean, I sprayed in this corner and 30 probably came out. They're still coming out. They are hurting though because I sprayed right into it. Now, if you notice, a couple things. I cut it from the bottom down. You don't want to cut it from the curved side. Yours has a curved side. You do not want to do that. You'll wreck it. See, the baluster's in, so let's make sure we do that. Put this thing in. Front and back. You gotta be very careful when you screw these things in. You don't want to over tighten them. You'll crack the plastic. Unless you're good with an impact gun, don't use one. Use just a hand screwdriver. So the cap, these really terrible caps, they go in like this. Alright, well, we sort of run out of time here. I paused on working on the deck to clean up that big pile of garbage that was over here. And during that time, the weather changed, and now we have freezing temperatures. I'm frozen right now just recording this. It means I didn't have time to dig a hole in here for the pad for the stairs to land onto. And now the ground's frozen and we can't build the stairs. I mean, we can build them, but we have nothing to land onto. So we're going to have to finish that in the spring. The other thing I didn't do is rip a piece to fit in here, which that really doesn't, the freezing temperatures don't matter there, so I could probably do that at any time. But those are the two things that need to be done, is rip a piece that goes into there and build the stairs. I finished all the railing, and I actually did some bracing. We'll go around this side here. See, I put two braces in on each section, so this thing, without a doubt, is totally solid. The next thing I need to do, actually, I need to put a skirt here to stop the dogs from going through, because you can see I could still have that wire fencing up to stop the dogs from coming in here and then going out. You know, not really a problem. Putting up this little skirt's going to be easy, and I'll tie it into that fence post right there, and I could do that at any time. Really, the steps are the only things that I can't do right now until the spring. It's a usable deck, totally usable. Bought a little table. We had a couple dinners out here before it got too cold. Obviously this deck is still here because there's a big problem with this deck about removing it, because underneath here there's concrete steps. So the person that built this deck covered the concrete steps with it, and below those concrete steps is the well for the water. And these steps are sort of cracking. They've cracked, water have gotten into them, and then it's frozen and it's broken it apart, and pieces are actually falling out of the bottom of the steps into the basement. So the basement makes a jog. The basement goes along this wall here, then it jogs out like that, quick, and then it comes back, and then it goes across here. And it jogs out because the well is right there. So the concrete steps are above it. it's breaking apart and falling in. I'll have to show you that another time. But essentially, this deck is protecting those concrete steps from getting just water pounded on it. So I still have to figure out what to do. What I really want to do is put a garage right here. That's what I really want to do. But that's a monster project. Probably not a project that I could do. I don't think. Just too big. Just way too big. But as of this moment, this is where we're at. And we're going to have to pick it up in the spring. But right now, like I said, it's a totally usable deck right now. So I'm happy about that. It's usable if it wasn't freaking 20 degrees right now, obviously. But these, okay, so let's talk about these things here. I put these on, and I've been happy with them. I mean, they're not very bright, but they're also not very expensive. I think these things only cost me $6 each. But that little solar panel right there, the small tiny one, it's just strong enough to keep this charged up during the day. Now, maybe not a day like this, but usually at night, I mean, they come on, and you know, they're usually semi-bright to bright. Not enough that you could have a party back here or anything, but it's enough where if you walked out here, you'd know exactly where the railing is. And I think that's all they're meant to do. You can hear all that ice cracking as I walk. So I would say for the money, I mean, they were probably $2 more than just regular caps. So definitely for the money, they're good, for sure. And obviously, I also need to clean up this area, take down that fence. Once I get the skirting done, I'll be able to take that down. I won't have to worry about the dogs. And we used a lot of the wood, but there's still some left. You can see that there's those 2x8s there. We'll have to put those in the garage. The garage is the next big project. But we also got to get back to tying. I mean, season is fast approaching, so we need 500 flies. We need 500 flies by April. And an update on the chimney. So there's the chimney. We've had a bunch of freezing days and a bunch of rain and a bunch of snow, and it's held together fine. I don't see any cracks on it, and I have no leaks on the inside. So I would say that that was a complete and total success, that project. The only thing I needed to do when I ended that job was I needed to spray it with some sealer, which I bought and did. I think I sprayed it twice. Yeah, I sprayed it twice. I mean, you can see there's some icicles right on there on that fascia, where that fascia needs to be replaced. We'll be doing that probably in the spring. The front side too, I got to replace as well. And then I got to replace the board and batten. We'll probably do that in the spring too. But other than that, I'm happy. So I call this a wrap for now. Maybe I'll update it on Instagram or something. I do a lot of stories on Instagram about the housework that I'm doing, so that's probably the place for it. Getting these videos out. This is a 4K camera, so getting these videos out when you have no real internet. We don't have broadband internet. It's difficult. I mean, uploading a 10 gigabyte file at the library, it's not exactly fun. All right. Well, if you've watched the videos, I appreciate it. And let's get back to tying, and let's get back to fishing. I have actually something cool to record in the next few videos about fishing. Made a big purchase, and you'll check it out soon enough. All right.